New analysis by Homelessness Australia has found only 3% of women who fled family violence were able to receive the long-term housing they needed in 2020 and 2021. Joining us live now is Kate Colvin, CEO at Homelessness Australia. Kate, thanks for joining us this afternoon. It's an alarming statistic. How is it that only 3% of women needing long-term housing in Australia are actually receiving it?
So what we have is this situation where women and children come to homeless services looking for housing, but if they're coming to homeless services, often they've perhaps already tried in the private rental market. We've got record low vacancy rates, we've got rents that have gone through the roof, and of course there's just not enough social housing. So that's where we end up with a situation where, because social housing wait lists are so long, that even though women and children would get, a high priority for housing that's available, there's just not the housing for them. So it's, it's quite shocking, really, because it puts women in a situation where they have to choose between sort of being stuck in homelessness or returning to the violence.
What are the long-term impacts when women and children don't have access to the housing that they need?
Look, being in a situation of homelessness, that instability, perhaps women's moving between couch surfing, sleeping in a car, perhaps staying in motels for short periods, that's very disruptive. We know it causes mental health issues to be in that kind of stressful situation. And it's, has really big impacts on children as well. It's very difficult for children to stay connected with their education, to be fully participating at school when they're moving around, when they have that uncertainty. So, when women flee a violent situation, I guess what they're looking for is safety and stability and all of those features that you need in a home to rebuild a new life free from the violence. And it's that lack of housing that makes that really critical. So today is the International Day to End Violence Against Women. So we wanted to highlight this issue because without housing, it's not actually possible for women to escape violent situations.
It's such an important issue. How often are women returning to violent partners because they don't have anywhere else to go?
So the research indicates that around 7,000 women a year do end up returning to violence, primarily because they have nowhere to go. Another 9,000 escape, but become stuck in a situation of homelessness. So that's why those two figures together, we're saying we need almost 20,000 social housing units a year to provide the housing so women can escape and then rebuild a life. And so we're really pleased that the government has taken some steps, the federal government, to invest in housing for this group. But unfortunately, at this stage, the amount of investment that's been made, which is about 800 properties a year, isn't enough to meet the need. So we're calling on the government to do more, and they'll release an action plan on ending violence against women and children in the new year. So that will be a great opportunity for the government to build on their current investment.
So you'd like to see the Commonwealth increase its commitment to building 20,000 properties as opposed to 4,000 over 5 years, which they've committed to?
So actually it's 20,000 a year. So it is quite a lot of properties, but that means it's because women and children each year, we have that many fleeing violence and either returning to violent homes or being stuck in homelessness. So the government have committed 20,000 total social housing properties over 5 years. And we're saying just for this group alone, we do need government investment of 20,000 a year. Now, that wouldn't need to just be the federal government. It's something that could be a partnership with the states. So, we do need all levels of government to be pulling in the same direction and solving this problem, because it creates, apart from the devastation to families, it does create, of course, health impacts, long-term impacts on children's education, as well as, it's very difficult, of course, for women to return to the workforce when they're in a situation where they're homeless.
Can you speak to us about the benefits of increasing available housing? Not only would these women be safe, but as you mentioned, they'll be able to participate in the workforce at high levels, and there'll be other benefits as well.
Yeah, so at the moment we've got record low vacancy rates around Australia, and what that means is that the rental market is really, really competitive at the moment. So at the moment, and we also have, a really significant skills shortage. So by building more social housing, then a lot of people who are currently really struggling to be in sustainable housing, in housing that they can afford, would be able to have a home, and that means they'd be able to participate more fully in the workforce. So that's certainly true of women fleeing violence who often have a disruption to their employment. If they could secure housing, then they can get the stability for their family settled and then be actively working. And, when we've got massive skill shortages, and particularly in a lot of the areas that are dominated by women workers, like the care sector, retail, all of these industries are crying out for workers. We can't afford to have a situation where, willing workers are in a situation where they can't participate.
Kate Colvin, CEO at Homelessness Australia, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. We appreciate it.
Thank you.